Hi, Karina. Nice to
How are you
see you
doing?
here. Yes,
Thank you for the
well,
invitation.
yeah, thanks for coming. So hi everyone. So now we are having Karina here. So it's such a pleasure to host this session. So this session is Why Fashion Needs Virtual Try-On, presented by Karinna Grant. So I'd like to introduce Karina before her presentation. So Karinna Grant is a educator, innovator, and entrepreneur, recognized globally for her expertise in real retail innovation and the digital transformation of fashion. She is a published author who consults and speaks globally on retail innovation and the digitalization of fashion. So in 2019, she created Hot: Second. It's a circular economy concept store trading physical goods for digital experiences. And just 1 year later, she co-founded the Dematerialized, and it's an experimental marketplace for fashion NFTs. So Karina is currently advising in fashion virtual try-on and game engine native entertainment. And in 2023, she gave a tech talk on digital fashion. So she regularly shares insights and sparks industry debates, contributing to media like Business of Fashion, Bloomberg, and Vogue Business. And with numerous speaking engagements at conferences, including South by Southwest, the Financial Times Luxury, etc. So, Karina is a recognized voice in the ongoing dialogue on fashion future. Now let's welcome Karina. So she's gonna present her research on why fashion needs virtual try-on.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I have to unfortunately say that I'm feeling slightly unwell this morning. So if I have to exit stage left because I feel unwell, then I will make a separate recording. So I have a glass of water by my side and I hope that it will be fine. But if I do suddenly disappear, it's because I'm not feeling well. So fingers
Yeah.
crossed. But thank you. Yeah, I'm always like so appreciative of the opportunity to talk about my favorite things. So I'm choosing to talk about virtual try-on because it's an area that I've always been interested in as a consumer, and now I'm even more interested in it as a consultant and advisor. Um, what I would like to share with you today is hopefully there's something in this for everyone, whether you're very au fait with virtual try-on or whether you're not very familiar with the space. So first of all, kind of looking at the who, what, where, how, why, and when, and kind of going through this discussion, I will share kind of examples of good practice, who are the key players in terms of the retailers adopting it, as well as the technology providers who are offering it. And then I'm going to kind of stop halfway through and we're going to try two different virtual try-on experiences, get some feedback from those in the room, and then continue with the rest of the session. And we have also some time for questions at the end. So this is introducing one of the providers that, if you're familiar with your space, you'll know it's Wanna AR. And I think it's fair to say that they have somewhat cornered the luxury marketplace for virtual try-on that's AR related. One of the reasons for that is that they were acquired or partially acquired by Farfetch maybe about 3 years ago. And therefore, the network that they were plugged into in terms of the brands that Farfetch is connected to, you can see if you go to their website or their social media. Yeah, there's a very obvious kind of clear link to people like Valentino and others that I'm showing you in the explanation. They started with shoe try on, and then now they have moved to different product categories. So what is it? In like simple basic terms, it's a tech tool that helps customers visualize products on themselves digitally. So with the, I guess, major aim, particularly if we're talking about digital to physical fashion, that it helps you make a better physical purchase decision. I think interestingly, when we think of virtual try-on for digital fashion, it has a slightly different use case in that it's more about flexing that kind of product, particularly if it's a digital asset which is layered on an image of yourself, a photograph, or a video. And I'll talk about a little bit more of that further on. The market size is strong, it's buoyant, and it's still in that kind of like early stage. And I mean, I've been tracking this market quite specifically for the last kind of 6 months. And I would say every 2 weeks, there's a brand new startup that has very good technology, excellent kind of founding team. And we can see that kind of happening in parallel, particularly as generative AI and AR in particular get to be kind of stronger, more believable, more usable, etc., and all their characteristics. In terms of where it's kind of used, the strongest use case for it is in online shopping. So we know are very familiar with the purchase journey of searching online beforehand, before we perhaps make a purchase in store, or completing it on, off. However, we do also see it happening in physical stores, so inside fitting rooms and magic mirrors, or on the shop floor with magic mirrors, or also one of my favorites as I started my career as a window dresser, interactive window displays. And if we just think for a minute, like, why are people kind of developing virtual try-on? Why is it kind of like important or useful for particularly that e-commerce market? If we think that, if we see year on year that the market share of e-commerce over total sales seems to be increasing by, I don't know, about 2 to kind of 7%. However, within that, we see a lot of kind of key stats. So for instance, many people, like me included, I digitally shop by putting things in my baskets and wish list that I'm never going to buy, but I enjoy putting them in my wish list or baskets. There's a very high proportion of garments which are returned, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with the term bracketing, which is buying the size that you think you are, perhaps a size above and perhaps a size below, or having to buy multiple styles and sizes. Perhaps you don't like fitting rooms, perhaps you don't feel comfortable in retail stores, and therefore a high proportion of those garments are returned. And I think we're all very familiar with the ongoing climate crisis, that has a terrible effect on the environment, and also for retailers, the kind of things that they do, although there are a number of EU directives which are, like, for instance, soon European companies can't burn their garments anymore when they're unsold, etc. But anyway, I think it's fair to say that it's a problem. And again, the bottom statistic, I think, is not kind of rocket science, but 47% say they don't like e-com because they can't see the items in person. So really, what makes me excited about virtual try-on is it's not a technology solution looking for a problem. There actually is a problem there that it's trying to fix. And if anybody has any questions as we go, then please pop them in the chat. I'll keep an eye there. It's fair to say that VTO is almost kind of in its early, well, not quite in its early kind of awkward teenage years, but it's still young. So only really in the last decade have we seen kind of commercialized, kind of scaled solutions. And more recently, adoption was boosted in terms of AR related try-on because of the integration of AR into Snapchat and Instagram, particularly in the beauty and kind of makeup. And also the availability of web-based AR, so that you don't need to have an app, whether it's a social media app or a retailer app, to experience web-based augmented reality. However, recent research, as you can see there from Statista, says that a very low percentage of European customers have tried VTO. So for retailers, that's an exciting kind of statistic, because it shows that if you invest in this space, you're going to create differentiation for yourself. You're going to get more media coverage, etc., particularly if you're in that kind of early stage of adoption. And when we see different examples of VTO in the fashion industry, it varies quite considerably. And as soon as a new solution comes out, I try it as soon as possible. So we can see various types of different technologies. So for example, artificial intelligence, AR, body scanning, an amalgamation of each of these different ones in different solutions. The personalization of the experience. So I have a matrix that I'll show you later on where some retailers and technology providers, their point of difference is offering you an avatar that is based obviously on your appearance, or that you can create to be based on your appearance, versus a real image or scan of yourself and your body. And obviously these types of differences have various different levels of success. The purpose of the virtual try-on can kind of differ quite greatly. So the ones which are more focused on scanning and metrics of your actual sizing, they're more specific to help you choose the right decision for fit and buy the right size. Whereas things like the AR and some of the AI-based try-on is more about, does this thing look good on me? Does it suit my personal style, etc., etc. And then there are some solutions which kind of amalgamate both of them. And then some of them are highly, highly kind of photo realistic, and some of them are more kind of like rendered and kind of look like you, but kind of don't look like you. And as I mentioned before, there are various different types of touch points, kind of hardware, so mobile-based, web-based, on kind of like laptops, iPads, etc., and magic mirrors. So there, for retailers deciding whether or not to go into this space, there is a number of decisions, I guess, that need to be made of what type of thing you kind of want to start looking at. On the right-hand side here, this is a couple of early examples from Holishan, a UK-based agency who created one of the first scaled magic mirror experiences for Uniqlo in Singapore. Actually, this not Singapore, LA. This store was, where they spoke to customers and they said, "What's your frustration point when you're inside a store?" And they said, "Well, if I'm trying on lots of different jackets inside a store, particularly their iconic puffer jacket, I get hot." So Holishan created a experience where you just had to try one jacket on, and then you touched a button on the screen and the color of the jacket changed. So again, important because it was solving a real kind of customer problem. The Converse one underneath, again, was an app-based experience where you could try on different styles of shoe before you purchased them. So where to use a virtual try-on? So if you think about customers and kind of customers' journey, right at the very beginning, and I was very excited to see in Business of Fashion State of Fashion report that their number 3, Discovery Reinvented, that they highlighted that generative AI is a very good tool that can help with product discovery. And virtual try-on is, I think, a prime example of that, because in my experience and observations, people try things digitally that they wouldn't normally physically. So they're more adventurous. And this is something I worked a lot in makeup AR a number of years ago. And people just could not believe that they would try, for instance, I don't know, an orange lipstick or a red lipstick digitally. And they said they would never in a million years try that in a physical environment, but that it suited them. And then that translated to a physical purchase. And there's not much kind of academic evidence or even that much industry evidence of that yet. My observations are anecdotal, but I really believe that that does happen. And also the digital to physical journey is one that's quite kind of like well established. Product evaluation, I guess it's the most obvious for that one. So if you're trying to choose between brands, products, styles, fits, sizes, etc., particularly if it's a higher involvement purchase, so luxury, occasion wear, etc., virtual try-on can really help with that decision-making process. And here I mentioned that for digital fashion consumption, after you've purchased the digital fashion asset, whether it's an NFT or whether it's not an NFT, wearing that asset digitally, whether it's on your real self, so on a photo or a video, or on an avatar inside a digital environment or a game, that's quite a solid use case again, that's kind of like there, that I always try and advocate for as well for digital fashion. For retailers and media publishers, and I have to underline there that I think not enough media publishers are embracing virtual try-on. I have a case study at the end which I can introduce you to that shows that it works for media publishers. But at the moment, the types of places retailers are putting digital fashion in is on their e-commerce pages, so on the product listing page and on the product description page. At physical touch points, so I mentioned them already. Also things like on chatbots, multimedia messages, and like something that I often speak to retailers are about, because I quite often wish list lots of things and have them in my basket and abandon my basket, is imagine that, I don't know, the day after I leave those items in my abandoned basket, if obviously I'm a customer and I've tried virtual try-on on their platform before, they send me an email that has my picture of myself in the garments that I've abandoned. I mean, it's also kind of torture a little bit, because that could potentially make me convert if I actually see myself in the garment that I'm trying to say, oh, should I get it or should I not? So I'm now going to go into two different methods, the AR method and the AI method, and they are significant and they differ in terms of, I guess, cost, precision, the process involved. So for AR, the huge benefit that it has is high consumer familiarity. Most of us, even at the like neo-Luddite and kind of like out the generation of kind of digital natives, are familiar, have had a phone stuck in their face where they've had like dog ears or whatever. And Deloitte kind of said this statistic that by 2025, 75% of the world population will be frequent AR users. I mean, that is high. But yeah, they're kind of saying that. So the method itself requires a digital version of the garment to be designed. So that could be created through scanning, photogrammetry, virtualization, as in pure virtualization in a computer-aided design program. And then it needs to be added to some kind of software program. So for example, one of the social AR programs, or built into a native app, or I should have also had added in there web app software. And then it's added into its final destination, so mobile software or magic mirror software. Advantages are it feels very immersive, because you see yourself, the garment, and you're also in your surroundings, so you're not kind of like blocked off from anything. It tends to be quite simple. It also can be quite cost effective, depending on who you hire to do your virtualization. And the integration into different social platforms makes the distribution quite easy. Not cheap though, because quite often when brands do a social AR activation, they have to put quite a lot of paid spend behind it, or hope that their social campaign goes viral in order for more people to find it. Disadvantages: whenever I'm user testing AR try-on, customers, a high proportion of customers still say, nah, like it's not good enough yet. So I'm describing it here as still glitchy. So sometimes the garment will be up here, and if you're moving, the garment doesn't move. There are some very good examples, but there are also some very bad examples. And it seems to be that when it's embedded into a native app, the customer experience and the technology is much better and stronger, but that's more expensive for the retailer to do. And also, if you think of something like here, 010, another key provider in the space, for smart mirror, integration into a store, people are nervous, especially in a time like this where like people are cutting corners, innovation budgets or innovation teams are kind of like eek. Also platforms getting pulled like Meta, Spark. And like I mentioned, you also need to include or save money for discovery if it's a social virtual try-on. However, some people like Shopify have reported a 40% reduction in returns if you put an AR visualization on the product description page. So again, there's starting to be a lot more evidence to say that the more tools you give a customer at the point of decision making to decide, is this the right product for me? The more happier they're going to be if it's the right one, the less likely they are to return it, etc., etc. So the other kind of major kind of like workflow approach is through artificial intelligence. I've described it as the cheeky younger sibling, the new kid on the block, and kind of also the one that's stealing a lot of the media attention, and I guess also kind of like money at the same time. The huge kind of benefit of the AI pathway is that you don't need to create a separate asset, because what happens is that the AI or the machine kind of like learning experience, it just uses a photography image of the garment and a photography image of a person, and it merges those together. So, I mean, I have a breakdown here of a very a more kind of layman's terms way of describing the capture of the garment, the caption of the customer. Those two things are then kind of like anchored together. The garment is then simulated and adjusted for larger sizes or smaller sizes based on the consumer input, whether that's a scan or typing in measurements, etc. And then there's an output, which is an image or a video, which then shows the garment what it would look like for them. You can see that I've written here, NB, please no need for a share button. Again, for a number of different brands that I have worked with on different VTO activations, we've experimented with having a share now button or share on social, but people don't use them. They just screenshot and do it in actually an almost a kind of like faster way. So yeah, you've got less need to add a kind of widget. The advantages then of this are that it's fast. I don't know if anyone has tried, for example, the DressX AI experience. If you go on their social media page, there's some really good examples of influencers or people within the team who've said, dress me like the Beyonce B outfit, and immediately you have that kind of like outfit. So it's very scalable. And the disadvantages are that it's not infallible yet. So sometimes there'll be like, I don't know, a hand cropping up in the wrong place, or you just get that kind of like, that looks like AI, the kind of uncanny valley kind of type effect. And also some consumers don't necessarily want to use these tools from a consumer privacy perspective. You can see here, this is an example of me in one of my favorite brands that unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, The Vampire's Wife, which is part of John Lewis department store in the UK, their fashion rental offer. And I think I highlighted this as an example because using fashion virtual try-on for rental and resale, I think, is a very interesting kind of customer proposition. And again, it really is advantageous for the customer who's wanting to buy the piece. And in this case, I guess if it's resale, the peer selling to the peer of getting the piece sold. So what kind of brands are kind of like investing in this space? So as you can see, there's quite a wide kind of like breadth. The thing that I kind of noticed, and the way that I pulled this diagram together, was just to do a PR search effectively for virtual try-on kind of in the last 5 years. And for me, you can see a bit of a figure of 8. So you can see luxury brands, and you can see value brands, kind of fast fashion and kind of entry level kind of like sports brands. And in the middle, these brands, so like I guess premium high street or accessible luxury, there's not so many, and obviously you've got some digital native brands and phygital brands in there as well. And I guess it's interesting because at the top end, I see luxury brands using virtual try-on to tease people into entry-level price points. So makeup, sunglasses, sneakers. And at the value level of the market, it seems to be more about kind of product collaborations or kind of new product lines. So they seem to use it for slightly different things. And then I guess if you compare the top axis with the bottom axis, there's definitely many fewer brands investing in Magic Mirror because of the concern of the cost of the hardware, how fast it depreciates, etc. And that's like a real concern for brands. Some brands are getting away from that by, like, for instance, 010 offers the Magic Mirror as a rental experience. So then the cost is part of the overall cost, and you don't have to have that as a depreciation. Some examples now of I would argue kind of best practice are Disney and Macy's, which was a 010 Magic Mirror experience. And I think, yeah, I don't know, who doesn't want to be a Disney princess is what I normally always say when I'm explaining this document. So the child or the adult would go on the spot and take a picture of themselves in various different Disney princess outfits. And you can imagine people, particularly of that age range, being very, very excited. And it was a trial. And as far as I know now, it ran for, I think, 2 months, and now it's moving to other locations, and it might even be a permanent install in the future. This Prada one, powered by Snap, I included because it was one of the first, it was 3 years ago now, one of the first accessories try-ons by a luxury brand on Snap that actually looked good. So for me, it was quite kind of significant in that context. And then this Cartier one, which was built in-house by them, is part of their New York Innovation Lab experience. So it's an invite-only experience where you're not left to your own devices to do stuff. You're guided through the experience, and the quality of the render on the actual pieces is incredibly high. And you can see that the ring that you try on, that acts as the trigger for tracking the document. Who are the kind of key providers? So I segmented this kind of landscape or ecosystem model into the type of technology they provide. So AR, AI, personalized 2D avatar, personalized 3D avatar. And then also there's an interesting kind of synergy of providers here for people who use the same technology to auto-productize imagery. So the idea that you don't have to do like lots of photo shoots of many different people in your looks or your collection, you can use AI to do that. I'm just going to go a little bit faster, maybe to make sure that I kind of get through everything else. Some other kind of much more recent examples in the last month. On the top left-hand side, 3D Look is one of the major players in the scene, and they have just created, they've been working with Zalando for a while, but they've just created a larger or a wider category of products that are available to be used on your avatar. And here you can see the focus is really on you make the avatar like you size-wise. Obviously, you can see the avatar is a bald kind of mannequin, so it's not about seeing what it looks like on you. It's about really trying to get the correct size, so quite functional, I guess. On the right-hand side, you might have seen in the last couple of days, Burberry have just announced a scarf try-on. which actually is one of the things we're going to user test on the next slide. So I won't say too much more about that. And another activation, again, you can see that WANA are branching out into many different product categories. If you look on their social media page, and they have this happy space of working mostly with luxury brands. So the renders of the AR pieces are very high quality. I would say some of the best in the space. And this one that I have on the bottom left-hand side, I have a love-hate relationship with, and it's Google's virtual try-on, or they call it virtual try-on. I would argue it's not really virtual try-on, because you don't see what the garment looks like on you. It just shows you other people who are a similar size to you, what the product looks like. Only available in the US at the moment, if anybody is going to try and test it for themselves. Just another way of visualizing the same thing. And you can see that like a 3D visualization on a model is quite a kind of busy space. And then the AR on the real customer is, again, a kind of cluster of spaces. Whereas the kind of 2D visualizations on the real customer is more of a white space and more kind of opportunity. But actually, this is the one that, because I'm tracking the space, every week or every 2 weeks, there's a new startup, which I'm kind of looking at. So these are the two experiences that I would love you to quickly try. What I might do is I will put the link. So the QR code should work for the Burberry one. And then the Zyler one, I will just copy the link. The John Lewis one, so copy link, I'll put it in the chat. I'll put the other one in the chat also. Also gives me a chance to breathe. Am I able? Well, I'm going to type it in the chat, and then I don't know if maybe someone from the Digital Fashion Forum team can share it with the copy link. Can share it with anybody else. Super. Thank you. And maybe I can talk a little bit to the examples. Well, actually, I don't want to put words in your mouths. So you can see the example of me in the bottom right-hand one. I don't know. Should I tell you my opinion whilst you're trying it? Again, maybe let me know in the chat what's the best way to orchestrate this. Sorry. So as I mentioned, the Burberry one was launched, I think, just on Monday this week, and it's in conjunction with a wider campaign that they're doing on they have a whole campaign that it's just about scarves. I think it's like wrapped around me or something it's called, and they have various famous people wearing different scarves. And actually the scarf category for WANA was only kind of launched maybe about 2 months ago. From I guess a advisory point of view, I think it's clever that Burberry have focused on an iconic product category in order to see like how useful this is. I think the downsides are the ones that I mentioned before, that the AR try-on is not perfect yet. It's still, sometimes the products don't quite sit in the place that they necessarily should. And on the bottom, this one, the Zyler for John Lewis, maybe takes a little bit longer to set up because you have to upload a photograph, enter some of your measurements. But the huge benefit is that you see multiple images of yourself in different products. And I guess for that kind of product discovery element is stronger. So for me, I'll tell you my answers. I prefer the AI experience because I can try on lots of things fast, and also it's like the output I would share. So that answers the second one. I would say the UX for the Burberry experience is easier, it's faster, whereas the other one takes more investment of your time. And my personal opinion is that the conversion would work more for the second one, the John Lewis one. So perhaps when we have some questions at the end, I'd love to know your kind of points on it. And so we will carry on. So the last couple of sections looks at why do customers want it, and why do retailers want it. I'll maybe kind of skip this one and just go to the list of the motivations. So convenience, you can shop from anywhere at any time, which is obviously what social commerce and e-commerce has allowed us to do, but we still have that barrier of what does it look like on me, which size should I buy, and video really, really helps that. It helps you reduce your risk. So whether you're outlaying money, whether you're outlaying time searching for lots of different ones, or the psychological risk of looking stupid in an outfit or a style because it's not quite right for you. Also, because you make better decisions, it means that you've got less kind of stress around decision fatigue. And the realism and the believability of results makes you more confident to make that purchase effectively. I think if you are a lover of brands, a lover of fashion, a lover of design, by using a service like Virtual Try-On, it makes you have a bit more of an emotional experience with the brand. So you start to feel more connected, and you start to have more of a relationship with the brand, which again is really helpful and also fun for both parties. It can give you more access to different products. This is more if you're if you're in a physical store with a sales assistant, and it means that you have that kind of endless aisle. Usually the output, if it's on you or an avatar of yourself, it's personalized. So that experience, the recommendations are just for you. And again, that can make you happier. Discovery, I've mentioned that point about you try things on digitally that you wouldn't try physically. And a lot of my kind of anecdotal research says that for, again, people who don't usually like shopping in stores because maybe they don't fit in, or the sales assistants are horrible to them, or different skin tones, like being able to figure out what color suits your kind of skin tone. Virtual try-on really helps with that as well, because you've not got to spend a whole day in a store. You can do it kind of fast, which is number 10. And then I thought I'd share with you some research that I undertook last month. Relatively small sample size of 300 people aged 18 to 55 in the UK who were regular consumers of fashion, so buying kind of 2 to 4 items per month. Consistent with that statistic was that 88% had never tried virtual try-on, but 76% were interested to try it, either interested or very interested. So again, fuel for retailers there. The major motivations for them to try were, firstly, they wanted confidence to buy the right thing. Second, they didn't want to buy extra sizes so that they had to return them. And thirdly, they would like to use it as a way to discover new items. My hypothesis going into this research was that consumers would only really be interested to use virtual try-on for occasion wear, luxury, high involvement items. Actually, the over half said it was suitable for any clothing category, and they said that it would be beneficial for anything. When I asked what was the most desirable characteristics of the experience, they said easy to use and fast. So that makes sense. And when I said what would be good, like what do you want to see next from virtual try-on, they said mix and match. They want to, instead of just being able to try on kind of whole looks, they want to be able to mix and match different items. So a bit like the Clueless experience. And so what about the retailer? What's gonna get them to invest in this technology? Well, conversion and return on investment. So more sales, higher conversion rates, less markdowns, because more people are hopefully buying the right thing at the right time. And there's obviously a chain reaction involved within that. Engagement, brands, consumers engaging with the brand. So the exciting thing is that if you have a virtual try on, for example, with Xyler, people try on between 50 and 70 items. So they're on your page for way longer, on your site, sorry, for way longer than if you didn't have virtual try on. And also if we're adding new stock, you've got a reason to return. So that's an important one. Customers will be happy if they choose the right item and the right size, and that you gave them the tool to be able to do that. They may even choose you over another brand that they love because of that. The personalized experience, you feel special, emotional, and that bond that I mentioned before is formed with the brand. It's relatively easy to integrate. So typically most people can do it. It typically works in a kind of like plugin style with an API, and it can be done in less than a couple of days. And also you don't necessarily need a developer to be able to do it. Reduced returns is huge benefit for everyone in the supply and demand chain. And also you get really nice insight. So you find out why everybody's trying on this red dress, but nobody's purchasing it. Why is that? So it gets you to have kind of nicer data endpoints and maybe predict consumer behaviors. As I mentioned, because this isn't omnipresent everywhere within the industry, for brands who invest in virtual try-on now, it's a source of PR and competitive advantage. And brands that use it have a higher perception of innovation. I would argue that it enhances sustainability because there is less energy waste and returns, particularly if it kind of affects all those things in number one. And it can make you have very kind of more integrated and effective marketing communications if you start to use it in kind of campaigns and across all kind of channels and verticals. The challenges though, so I've kind of broken these down into being tech related and people related. One is definitely the maturity of the tech. So for example, cloth simulation isn't easy to do. It's not perfect, but it is rapidly changing. And also people are nervous. What if I invest in tech today and then the next big thing comes out tomorrow and then my tech already is like, doesn't look good. So people are nervous about what to do and when. I've added like what is true virtual try on or not. So for example, the Google example that I showed you, user experience is critical. So no friction. The UI has to be very easy to use. One of the issues within that is where do you put the try it on button and how does it compete with the purchase button? And that's something that is individual to the design of every e-commerce page. And also, we're not there yet in terms of total inclusivity, and we need to have more and more diverse data sets to account for kind of true inclusivity, particularly more in the AI area. And then kind of people related, something which is a real issue that I see a lot with larger brands is that maybe a brand will do a AR activation. So they get a piece virtualized and then nobody does anything else with the 3D asset, even though it could be used in many other places within the supply and demand chain. So yeah, that's something that isn't fixed yet. Sometimes if you show like a hyper real version of people and also products, it can turn people off. So kind of like the self-concept uncanny valley effect. And also how do customers like find the service is something that there needs to be kind of more research on. And also it kind of depends a little bit on, do they like technology? How dependent are they on their devices, etc. And a kind of controversial point is that some retailers don't want people to buy less. So the bracketing and the buying in multiple sizes, a lot of people then just like forget to return stuff. So the retailers have that sale. So some retailers, I would argue probably those more in the lower end of the demand chain, see that happening. And also, there's very mixed information available about, okay, if everybody puts AI virtual try-on their e-commerce platforms, is that going to be really bad for the environment, or does that offset what the returns are? I don't know the answer to that, but I would really like to find out. This is the example on the left-hand side here, and yeah, the opt-in privacy considerations. Dior and Condé Nast early this year did a collaboration of AR try-on for earrings, quite expensive earrings, so $5,000. They did it in the US, Korea, Japan, and one other market, and it had high levels of conversion. Actually, sorry, I should say the thing that made it work was that they did it in collaboration with Condé Nast, and they did it as a web-based AR try-on experience via editorials that were on the page. So again, that kind of holy trinity of brand, media partner, easy to use technology really led to higher conversions. The most interesting statistic of this was that Dior was perceived to be more innovative because they were using the technology in this way. So to summarize and look to the future, I would argue that VTO is an experiential and revenue generating tool that obviously helps you try before you buy. The two main options are AI and AR, and then you've got a number of different kind of touch points that you can use. I mentioned who uses it and kind of why they use it. It's still early in the space, and that's kind of what's exciting. And we see that the kind of trends of generative AI, immersive retail, and computer vision technology are kind of big trends for last year, and I think will continue into next year as well. Really high compound annual growth rate predicted for this space. So again, an attractive one to be in. And the kind of questions that I think are interesting are, why aren't more publishers investing in virtual try-on, like the Condé Nast example? Could it be used as a separate revenue stream? So could you charge customers, like could you build an app? And there are some people who are currently doing that, which is just about being able to virtually try on stuff. And are we going to see a higher acceptance of avatar try to buy with Roblox earlier announcement that now you can try it on your avatar and then go to purchase it in real life? And we haven't seen too many examples of other ways that that has worked. But yeah, made it to the end and I wasn't sick, so I'm very happy. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, so lovely. It's really, really interesting. Thank you, Karinna, for sharing your energy and passion on virtual try-on. It was really, really remarkable. Yes, we've got some questions from our audience.
Perfect.
So the first one is that, when you mentioned about, the returns and people, buying different sizes and then returns, most of it is really a big issues for the fashion industry. But so now the question is that large, especially online retailers, must be losing billions to returned garments. And are you aware of any of them trying to take on the problem in-house or with large investments into virtual try-on startups? They
seem less to be investing in virtual try-on startups and more like fit technology seems to have helped more. So like startups, well, they're established now, like TrueFit. If I look at a snapshot of various fast fashion websites, they've gone for fit first. But I really think that, well, I don't know. My hypothesis is that fashion customers we're a bit more hedonic and emotional than functional. So actually you need this blend, I think, of virtual try on plus like size recommendation and fit technology, and then it'll fall into place more. As I said, Zalando have been trying stuff. Bershka and Inditex have been experimenting a little bit with AR try on. And yeah, people are trying it, but not enough in my opinion, because to me it's not so expensive and the benefits outweigh the risks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we have another question is that for yeah, it said that in my opinion, virtual try-on for made to order brands would be match made in heaven. So have you worked on any of cases like this?
I haven't, and actually, again, three of my favorite things is that, like, I mean, one example that I use a lot is of Finesse Studios, who they show digital renders of their pieces, and then they ask people, like, would you buy the physical version of this? So using digital to barometer kind of demand. But absolutely, there's no reason why that shouldn't go to the next step. If you have the digital renders, if you want to do an AR version, or if you obviously maybe you could have a sample and make the other version. But yeah, I agree, and I haven't seen any examples. So whoever that was that asked it, then yeah, advocate for that in the marketplace.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it would be really good though. Yeah. And so, well, personally, I have a question. So you mentioned about technology, for example, like AI, try on, and with all these technology advances, we might see consumer behavior and expectation change through all these technologies. But in fashion, we would like to see is to minimize overproduction and overconsumption. So will there be another type of environmental impact from virtual try-on that's which is to encourage people to buy more in retail?
Well, actually, I hope that it might be the flip. So I guess people like DressX, particularly, and Zero Ten, and some of the digitally native digital fashion brands had tried to do this to say, instead of getting your kick and your dopamine hit from purchasing new physical stuff all the time, why don't you try dressing yourself in digital garments to post on social media, or hopefully there's going to be more digital environments that we can wear versions of ourselves in. So I do believe in a future that our physical consumption will decrease and our digital consumption will start or kind of like increase. And also, if you couple that with buying fewer but better and more correctly, then hopefully we'll start to see a recalibration that's better for us, better for the retailer, and better for the planet, because I do see it as being a mutually beneficial solution.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, because it's also an opportunity for digital fashion designers as well. Then, yeah, because we can have more, like use cases and case studies on digital fashion design or marketing.
I think the issue is we haven't seen the critical mass of people wanting to flex digital fashion in that way yet. We haven't seen enough of people saying, oh yeah, this is fun. And like, I again advocate a lot for, I believe that like virtual try on, like just trying on a luxury fashion dress to me is a fun experience. Like that's a fun experience in itself. It's like again, I get a dopamine hit. I don't necessarily share it, but maybe I would. And I think as that becomes to be perhaps more normalized, and as it's integrated into platforms like Roblox, etc., that behavior going forward will change and be like, oh, well, maybe I don't need 10 different dresses for my holiday or something.
Yeah, we have one more question. So she said that I think the AR tech for clothing with physics and materials is still not the best of quality, but I hope it will get better and better soon. So what do you think about it?
I agree. Yeah, it's my one, like, sometimes I wish I could fast forward like a couple of years, 2 years or something, because we're close. And obviously as we move into the advent of AR glasses or XR glasses and headsets becoming more acceptable and moving from niche to mainstream, then suddenly digital fashion makes sense, because that layering of digital and physical starts to become more possible for the everyday. But yeah, just now, nobody's really going to be using AR a lot to say, yeah, that's the thing I want to buy physically, particularly, although, I mean, Dior says it works for sneakers, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And okay. So one more questions. It's with the you mentioned like privacy concerns. Okay, yeah. So how can brands address and reassure users about the privacy and data securities of virtual try-on features?
I think they just have to be very clever in their UX and UI and build that into the journey so that it's very explicit what's happening to the images that you upload. I mean, because some of them, like, they're asking for like you to upload images effectively of you in your like underwear or like really tight garments, and that's a big deal for many people.
Yeah.
So I think the way to address that is to have simple language, easy to use, like easy ways to find, okay, like, does the photograph stay on my computer? Does it live in a server somewhere? Am I going to see it on, is it being trained for a data set that I have no idea about? So I think being able to find that information simply and easily, because I don't know, if you look at the frequently asked questions or even a data privacy statement, they're not so easy for a regular customer. I mean, even for me, and I'm kind of working in this space to find out. So I think simplicity and ease within the UI and the UX is the way to address those. And I guess in a future where I believe in kind of decentralization, that ultimately the customer owns their own data and it's not the retailer or the technology provider, because then there's a level of extraction which is you're not in control of. Even though I did say that was a benefit for retailers, but
yeah, so this is going to be the opportunities for those virtual try-on startups to develop and work on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And my last question is that, it's interesting that you mentioned that there are not enough publishers and media using virtual try-on, but you also mentioned that, Condé Nast and with collaborated with High Jewelry, like with Dior. So, what advantages for adopting it if you think that not many publishers are using it?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
would it be possible? And also, would it be possible that, perhaps it's for online media that have more opportunities?
I mean, it does, but I mean, I guess also less people buy print these days. But I mean, something that I'm very excited about and kind of pitch to brands and retailers and media publishers is, okay, you have a magazine or a newspaper that has a fashion editorial that it looks amazing, or even a fashion show, a runway show, and there's a little QR code in the bottom, and you scan that and you can try the piece on instantly. I mean, we haven't really seen any examples of that, and that's a real way, again, that the customer starts to feel close to the brand. There's a novelty factor. You start to think, oh, like, does that brand suit me? I think media brands aren't doing it because they are, I guess they have a bit of an identity crisis at the moment about where their revenue's coming from, but all the more reason that they should consider something like this, because I mean, it could lead to like strong affiliate models, etc.
Yeah, and also to have to provide a more like a user experience or reader experience value.
Yeah. And I guess we see definitely that the blurring of boundaries between brands and media publishers is like, it's a bit enmeshed anyway. So this is another way that I think it could work. But I think, as I mentioned, I described it as the holy trinity, because I think when you have a strong brand that has a strong position in the marketplace and good brand elasticity, plus a publisher which has the same, that's a prime, like, there's no reason that that should fail unless the UX is bad and they don't do any PR and marketing. So in theory, that should work, just because of who's involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so thank you, Karinna, for sharing all your insights and then I hope you'll get well soon. And
Thank you. I'm so
thanks for
glad I made it
today.
through.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you. So see you next
thanks.
time.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.